The hardest part of what I do, I'm not complaining, by the way, harder than writing and designing Kingdoms in Warfare, harder than running MCDM. If indeed I do run MCDM.
I'm not a lump of hash. I'm in charge of Factory Records, I think.
The hardest thing for me is figuring out what the next video should be. It's a pain in the ass. It's been like 2 months, 3, since the last video, and yeah, mostly that's because I've been hyper-focused on finishing the design for Kingdoms in Warfare, which you'll be happy to know is now done. The design, not the manuscript. But it's also because I thought I knew what the next video was about. I thought we should talk about awarding experience, because it's something a lot of new DMs ask me about, especially after their first session. So I thought, better do a video about that. But it's just not very interesting to me. There is some stuff to talk about there, especially about the history of this subject, but I wasn't interested in doing it. Also, I felt like we've been away for a while. This will be the first video in months. Is this really the best subject for the first video after a long break? So I thought I knew what the next video was, but I just wasn't into it. It felt like an assignment, something I was obligated to do because I said I would. I was not looking forward to it. In fact, I was sort of dreading it. Does that sound familiar? In other words, it's not enough that I think I know what I need to do next. I also need to be excited about it. If it feels like an assignment, well, then there's a problem. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt Colville. I did a video a while ago in which I said that I have fun running D&D if my players had fun playing. If they had fun, I had fun. And that was not a euphemism or me being clever. I meant it literally. That story about my friend asking if I had fun and I said, did you have fun? And she said yes. And so I said, then I had fun. That really happened. And that is really how I feel. However, there is another side to that coin, and that is I am also a player at the table. If my players had a bad time, well, then I didn't do my job and I feel bad, and that means I didn't have fun. But I should also enjoy running the game. I am one of the players at the table. D&D is weird. We divide the table up between the players and the DM, and we have this prop to literally represent that. But while that is true, the table is the DM and the players, and that distinction is real. The DM is also a player at the table. We are all playing D&D. In other words, you should enjoy running D&D. You should have fun too, and you should be able to have fun while you are running. You folks didn't see this, but after the battle with the Black Iron Pact, Matt O'Driscoll leapt up out of his chair, pointed to the table with all the minis still set up and said, "That was awesome, best D&D so far." And yeah, it felt good to hear one of my players say that. They had fun, so I had fun. But also, I really enjoyed running that battle. It was the first test of the action-oriented design, and it worked. It needed refinement, but I had fun running that battle, and I think you can tell if you watch. And it's really, really important you understand that I had fun, because that is the kind of stuff I like doing in D&D. I like building complex encounters to challenge my friends. I once spent 6 hours building a single bad guy for D&D, specifically 3rd edition, which was way more complex than 5th edition. It was a bugbear who used a whip, and for some reason at that time in my life, I was obsessed with doing everything by the rules. And so I had to do all of this work, scrub through like 6 different books to figure out which class levels this bugbear needed at which levels, so he qualified for the feats I needed to make his stuff work. And the whole time I was thinking, if this dude dies in 1 round, I am never running D&D again. And I think a lot of DMs have that experience of the cool villain they made just collapsing like a flan in the cupboard. Well, this bugbear lived like 7 rounds, and it was an epic battle, and I loved it. The players were engaged and challenged, and it was memorable and dramatic. And as it was working, I was just delighted. I was in D&D heaven. I was having fun. The reason I bring this up is because running D&D involves so much. It is important you know what you like about it. What about running D&D is fun for you? Not what is expected of you. That's not fun. And not what about hanging out is fun. If it turns out you just like hanging out with your friends and running the game is a chore, well, then there's a problem. There are so many different elements to running the game, and no single DM can do them all or all equally well, and that's okay. So you need to figure out what you like about DMing and focus on that. And I think you can basically ignore the stuff you don't like. If you don't like running monsters, that's okay. Lots of tables have very little combat. I would suggest probably there are better games for you than D&D if you don't like running monster encounters, but that's another video. You know, I've played with lots of DMs who weren't into role-playing. They didn't speak in character, and I tend to be more RP focused as a player, but I still had fun in their game because they made sure their game had the stuff they liked in it. And since they loved the world building or the politics, so did I. because their passion translated into them having fun, and that made it engaging for us. So, what do you like about playing D&D? When I'm writing, and this includes writing for video games or writing novels, I often hit a block where I know what I need to write. I wrote an outline in which I figured out that in chapter 62, this character figures out something important. But when I sit down to write it, I'm not interested. I'm not inspired. Nothing happens. I start typing a few words and I'm not feeling it, and I give up. This happens all the time. It happens when I'm running D&D. It's a few hours before we're supposed to play, and I do not care about running tonight. But I need to look forward to it, otherwise I won't be into it, and it will suck. If running the game is only an assignment, a responsibility, something I'm doing because I said I would, then I will not have fun, and the game will suck. So yes, if my players had fun, I had fun, but if I'm not having fun running the game, then they will not have fun playing, and then we're all feeling like that was a waste of time afterwards. Probably the number one reason I give for not running and postponing a session is I'm not ready. But I would say most of the time it's really just that I'm not in the mood. I need to be in a certain state of mind. Running the game is performative. I'm going to put on a little show and I'm going to manage this table of players, and the DM has a lot more responsibility than everyone else at the table, and sometimes I just want to hang out with my friends and have fun and not worry about that responsibility. But that's hard to explain, so I say I'm not ready. And I know I'm letting down my friends when I say it. But sometimes there's just nothing for it. I don't feel like doing the song and dance. Let's play something else tonight. And that has to be okay. I'm a big believer in the players understanding that soon it will be their turn to run the game, because that means when one DM isn't feeling it, another one can run their game. But there is a trick you can use that helps with that kind of writer's block, or DM block. Writer's block and DM block are very similar. There's a chapter I know I need to write because it's important to the plot, but I'm not feeling it. Well, that's because the chapter is necessary, but boring. So, put some tension in there. I don't remember where I heard this, but the phrase I use is, you need to put a gun on the table. Two people are talking about something important, but boring. Well, you're going to be bored writing it, and it will take forever to write, and when it's done, it will suck. Two people are talking about something boring, and one of them puts a gun on the table. Well, now there's tension. Is he going to shoot me? Why did he do that? Why did he even bring a gun here? Almost every time I have writer's block, it's because the thing I have to write lacks tension. Another phrase I use to myself is, well, this is boring, so someone needs to die. I don't mean that literally. What I mean is we need some drama in this scene. Anytime I have that kind of writer's block, it's always, always, always because the scene is necessary but boring. So instead of thinking about how to plow through and write that boring scene, I need to recognize it's not interesting and change it to make it exciting for me to write. That is the trick. What would make the scene exciting to write? It works every time. If running the game feels like an assignment and you're not into it, you need to come up with something you're excited by, something you can't wait to put in front of your players. And in order to do that, you need to know two things. One, what was supposed to happen and why are you bored by it? It actually takes a little work to realize the reason you're not looking forward to running is because you're just not interested in what's on deck. You're not inspired. You know what's supposed to happen next, and you think that knowing what's next is all you need. Like, I prepared this, I did all the work. Isn't that enough? Well, actually, no. The work is coming up with something you're excited to run. So what's boring about the next session? 2, you need to know, and this is the most important bit, you need to know what you like about DMing. And it's not always obvious. A lot of people get started because they were inspired by someone else. But someone else's inspiration will only get you so far. You are not that person, and they are not behind the screen. You are. You need to find out what you love about running D&D and then put that into your game. One thing I find inspires me when I'm bored with D&D is I look through the monster manual. Sometimes just the vanilla monster manual, but sometimes I'll go on the web and I'll search for monsters by challenge rating to find stuff that's about the right level for the players, give or take, and I'll just read through a list and I'll see some monster I've never heard of, but that sounds cool. What book is that in? Or I'll flip through some other monster book, maybe not even a D&D book. I'm just looking for inspiration, which often means surprise, seeing an encounter from a different point of view. Oh, but what if it was this cool undead thing? Or what if there was an elf noble in the next room? And then I'll use that in the next encounter instead of whatever I thought was going to happen. That's how we ended up with a mind witness teleporting a bunch of drow into a tavern to fight the Shield of Gravesford, which was epic and memorable. and something I just made up like 3 hours before the game. I just saw this picture. That was all it took. I was immediately inspired. I wasn't really interested in what the book said this was. I had my own idea what this monster was. So I read the text, and some of it I thought wasn't right for what I wanted, but some of it was. So I stole the bits I liked, and I filled in the rest with my own ideas. I was really excited to use this monster, and I built a whole encounter around it, and suddenly I was really excited about running the game. Took maybe 2 hours. Now, that worked for me because that is part of what I like about running D&D. I like creating unique encounters. I like using new monsters. Something else I like is introducing new NPCs. If I'm down on the game tonight and I'm not feeling it, well, maybe it's because there's no one interesting for me to play. If I make some new NPC for them to meet, then maybe we're onto something. Lots of great characters in my campaign exist because I was bored and I wasn't looking forward to running the game, and so I just made up someone for them to meet. And interacting with that NPC can chew through an entire hour. You gotta remember, you only need enough content ready for about 4 hours of play. And that's not really that much. Your players will talk amongst themselves, argue, plot, scheme, and that's time you're not running, you're just listening. And for me, that is one of the joys of dungeon mastering. If my players are arguing about what to do next, proposing different ideas, then they're taking the game and my world seriously, and that is fun to listen to. Then, an encounter. A good encounter can easily chew up 90 minutes. But the trick is, I know what I like about running the game, so it's relatively easy for me to come up with something that excites me. That being said, sometimes I punt. Something that helps me when I'm stuck and I don't feel like writing or DMing is, I watch a movie. Obviously, this is personal. I love movies, but a good action movie usually has at least one awesome scene or character that inspires me. And inspiration doesn't necessarily mean I want to rip it off. It just means being excited by something epic and dramatic, and that can get me back in the mood. But yeah, sometimes I'll rip off a character or a plot point wholesale. You know, maybe the thing you love about running D&D is making maps. Okay, you got 3 hours before the show. I always call it the show even before we start streaming. You got 3 hours before the show. Draw a map. Draw a new map right now. I don't know what it's a map of. You're the one who likes maps, but make it a map you're interested in. A map to hidden treasure, a map leading to the dragon's lair, a map of an ancient temple. Then drop it in front of your players. They find it in the next room or an NPC gives it to them. Now they have something new and unexpected to talk about, and they will be surprised and engaged, and you can listen, and they will come up with ideas about that map that will inspire you as they do it. And then you're off to the races. When the players come up with an idea you love, but obviously don't have anything prepared for because they just invented this idea, then throw a combat at them. You just need to delay until the end of the session and then spend the next week working on that idea that excited you. That's what it comes down to. Being excited about the next session. And sometimes that happens because of stuff the players came up with. If you bought or even wrote an adventure, that's great. But just because it's written down doesn't mean you have to do what it says. You are in charge, not the adventure. If you're bored by the next bit, if you're uninspired, throw it out. Maybe replace it or just delay the next bit for now and toss in something new, something you're excited by to keep you going. You can always come back to the boring bit later. So that's my advice. You need to figure out, why do I like running D&D? Think back to the sessions that you enjoyed while you were running them. What was happening that gave that session so much energy? At the end of the day, you are also a player. You need to have fun. You cannot only concern yourself with your friends' enjoyment. That won't work. The first thing you need to do as a DM, the first and most important thing is you need to put something in front of your players that hooks them and makes them excited to play tonight. And the way you do that is you find something you are excited by. Because if you're excited by it, whatever it is, if it's a monster or an encounter or a map or an NPC or an item or some conflict, if you're excited by it, that excitement will come out at the table and your friends will be hooked. So, what about sitting behind the screen excites you? Know that, and you know how to have fun. And if you're having fun, your players will probably have fun. That's it, folks. That's the video. I hope someone out there hears this and it helps them relax and enjoy themselves. Tons of work has been done on Kingdoms and Warfare. We just published 2 big Kickstarter updates showing off the core design. I think it's going to drastically expand the kind of games you can run. Please go check them out. I'm super excited by the product, and I think you will be too. If you like any of this, please come by our store where you can pre-order the book or any of our incredibly cool minis or just a shirt. Because my work on Kingdoms and Warfare is wrapping up, you will get more videos soon. Click the bell icon down there if you want an alert when we upload a video. You can follow us on Twitter, and we have an incredibly popular Discord, as well as a great subreddit if you just want to hang out and talk nerd stuff. Links to all this in the doobly-doo. Finally, every time we do a new video, we do a live stream here on YouTube at 11 a.m. on Friday. They are always fun, tons of great questions and interactions. Come by, hang out, it's cool. Until next time, peace out.